I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, do you support medically assisted dying for people who suffer from mental illness?
I'm not in favor of it.
I mean, if they're sound enough to make that decision.
Personally, I don't.
I think anybody has the right to die without any reason whatsoever.
But first, for months now, Canada's central bank has been warning Canadians that a recession is right around the corner. A recession is when the economy shrinks for 2 consecutive quarters instead of growing. But many people may feel a recession is already here, given the high prices, especially in the grocery stores. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians how bad it will get before it gets better. Our question:
how severe do you think a recession will be in Canada?
It's tricky, right? The amount of government spending that we've seen coming from a place of deficit, when you divide the national GDP into smaller pieces and you still call each piece a dollar without adding a corresponding value, what do you think is going to happen to the dollar, right? Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it could be pretty bad.
That is hard to say. I think we'd just be back in the 30s again. What would happen? I mean, we're almost there now. The homelessness, people just wondering, no jobs. I think it would kill us.
Will be or is? I don't know. I know the last time that we've talked of recessions, we seem to fare much better than other places. It's who it's mostly going to affect. If the mega money loses money, well, that's too bad because it's mega money. But the general hardships of the people underneath will be hard. So recession, I think, will do well enough, or at least on the average, well enough.
I would say would be pretty bad, just considering that so many people already skirt the poverty line, and with the rising cost of everyday life and just day-to-day living, it's going to bring that a lot of people below the poverty line.
I'd be pretty severe for a lot of people. I think most people are walking around in a fog when they really don't know what 10 cents and $2 means, because everyone lives way beyond their means, mortgaged and leveraged to death. No one looks forward to the future. So yeah, there'd be a big shock.
You know, if the supply chain issues that we've been seeing over the past couple of years are going to continue, and if they're going to escalate and get worse, then we're going to start seeing a lot of shelves and stores that get unstocked, and we're going to see a lot of, prices go up for everyday people in New Brunswick and in Canada.
Depends on who you are. I'd say some people are going to use the opportunity and some people are going to lose pretty hard. So I guess it just depends on who you are and what you've invested in completely.
I think it's a choice between inflation or recession. And I think the way the interest rates are rising and house prices, market is in bubble, I think recession will be pretty deep.
I'm not too sure, honestly, but it could be pretty bad seeing that all the prices are going up. Like the other day, I went to go buy chicken and the chicken breast for like 2, I think was like $25. And that doesn't make any sense because like I'm a student trying to like budget myself and I can't do that if chicken's $25. So that's all I think. I don't know of anything.
I don't have too many expenses at the moment. Like groceries is pretty much the only thing I really notice. And that, like, the prices go up and up. Like, you're always trying to find a deal here and there. But, the recession could definitely be serious if it does happen.
I think it's going to be pretty rough. The government gave away a lot of money and didn't go to the right people. And I think a lot of funds were misappropriated. And I think that's going to create an effect. Taking into account also what's going on with our southern partners in America, I think that's going to have obviously when they have a recession, it comes down to us afterwards. But that's my opinion on that.
I don't think it'll be too severe, to be honest. I think we've already been in it. I think that now they're just starting to finally call it that. And I think, that'll have a market impact. But I think for the most part, it's kind of already been happening.
I think it'll be quite severe in different sectors of the economy. And I'm not even sure I understand which ones right now, but it's not going to be evenly spread throughout. And it's not going to be geographically even throughout the country.
Well, with the interest rates going way up, I think it's going to be kind of rough this year from the sounds of it. So I think it'll be kind of, tough for people, especially when they're increasing the prices of everything a lot.
Oh, yes, we do. Well, we feel it, absolutely. when we do groceries and shopping and everything is so costly.
Not that serious. We've seen recessions before. I think we've seen one in '86, and I think that wages will come up slowly and interest rates will come down slowly.
I'm thinking a bit worse in 2008, but not as bad as the late 80s, early 90s. That's what I'm thinking.
I think it will be pretty severe from my perspective. Looking at the economic fundamentals, it's going to be very, very prolonged, and you have many factors that are working against us at the same time. So we will see. We haven't seen interest rates like this in 30, 40 years, so we must not underestimate the inflation and the interest rates that will remain high.
I think it'll probably be very severe, but I can't spend my time worrying about that, because I'm older now. Recessions come and they go. Don't they?
Medically assisted dying became legal in Canada back in 2016. And since then, more than 30,000 Canadians have chosen that option to end their pain and suffering. Canada is looking to expand its medically assisted dying framework this March to include those who suffer from mental illness, a move many think pushes things a little too far. Those who are opposed to it feel it could make death an option for those with suicidal thoughts. Those who are for it feel it would be discriminatory if we exclude people with mental illness. The federal government now feels it may need a little more time to think it over. So, what do you think? Our question.
Do you support medically assisted dying for people who suffer from mental illness?
Yeah, that's incredibly complicated situation. I find in general, I think it's a positive thing. Often the media can kind of cherry pick individual situations that I don't think really reflect the overall picture. I find that the controversy ends up happening where there's one person who's in a bad situation where things go where maybe it shouldn't, and then that becomes the symbol for the entire movement. The issues with mental illness in terms of being able to consent to something like that, and I think it's too complicated for me to really have a strong stance on it.
A lot of mental illnesses can be overcome with the proper coaching and with psychological counseling. Right now we have veterans coming back with PTSD or police coming back with that, and they have these service dogs to help them. So I think that when you experience love and support in your life, that you can overcome possibly most mental illnesses, unless you're born with some type of genetic problem, of course.
Personally, I don't, because I think that for mental issues, I still think that we should first make sure that everything is exhausted for help with that. And I think right now that help is not there. It's not enough help is there for the. So the easy way out is just to say, okay, let's do medically assisted, end of life and we should, I think, be not addressing it that way.
Are they in the state of mind to be able to decide for themselves that is really what they want? And how do you know that? Yeah, I don't know.
Yes. I think anybody has the right to die without any reason whatsoever. If someone who's clearly conscious says, I would like to die, that's their business and they should be allowed to die. Yeah, even if they're not sick, even if they're just tired of life, doesn't matter. If you don't want to be here, give them an easy way out.
You think of sound mind and body is enough of an excuse?
Yes. Anybody has the right to die if they want to. They can go kill themselves if they must. So why not do it in a more humane, civil way?
I think it has to be the individual's choice, but and I think this is where there has to be a very good evaluation. It's not just like I want to, I'm depressed, I want to die, one type of thing. But I don't want to say it's never applicable. But it has to be an individual, it has to be really well thought out.
Same thing. Yeah. We always agree.
You always But it's, I mean, we had a gentleman saying that sound mind and sound body is enough reason. You don't agree with that?
I think people should have the choice. They do have the choice, right? No matter what we say, they have the choice, and people decide to die all the time. And the question is, do we want to help them? And again, I agree. There has to be a very careful evaluation.
Yeah.
And the thing about depression is that it is not constant. It gets better, right? So you don't want to make a decision to die when it might have gotten better.
I'm not in favor of it. I understand that people who are suffering and there's no possible cure, why they want to do that. I'm not sure a person that's mentally ill is cognizant enough to recognize what that decision means. I think that their advocate should speak on their behalf.
I have a lot of thoughts on it. I think that it is not necessarily the best idea to be like marketing it right now as here you go, medically assisted death if you're mentally ill. However, on the other hand, if you've been struggling with treatment-resistant mental illness for decades, for most of your life, and your quality of life has not improved in that time, I don't see why that's any different to a low quality of life from a physical illness.
Not from mental illness, it has to be a physical disease.
Why do you say that?
Because people can be in the depression, and believe it or not, you may feel there might be no hope, and then a month later you might feel there is. Whereas if you've got a disease that you're going to die from, you're going to die from it.
Well, we all have that right to do what we want to do. If they want to leave this world, well, then it's their right.
I mean, if they're sound enough to make that decision, and it goes through the proper channels, through a psychologist and the proper people involved, then perhaps that's something to consider.
No, I don't. Definitely not. They should be offering a cure rather than an easy way out.
I understand that the hardships that it would that people would be going through, but I think that if someone's going through suicidal tendencies or things like that, I think what they need is more professional help.
Support.
Definitely not suicide.
I don't think death is the answer.
Honestly, I think medically assisted dying, unless the person is like in excruciating pain and that's like provable they are in excruciating pain and at their later part of their life cycle, then maybe. But I do believe medically assisted dying is kind of a cop-out on the government to not pay for healthcare. But that's a little bit of a controversial opinion. So.
Sure, yeah. I think that medically assisted dying for mental health issues is it's just a matter of consent. So as long as the person is consenting to it, it's absolutely, yeah.
Which Canadian Prime Minister helped establish the Order of Canada? William Lyon Mackenzie King, Lester B. Pearson, Pierre Trudeau. King, Pearson, or Trudeau?
Trudeau?
Mackenzie King.
A. Mackenzie King. Pearson?
Pearson.
I'm gonna go with Pierre Trudeau.
Trudeau.
Lester B. Pearson.
And you would be absolutely correct, sir.
Me too.
Very good. Elbow bump. Yeah.
In 1967, a new Canadian institution was created. It was named the Order of Canada. In April of that year, Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson rose in the House of Commons to announce that on the recommendation of his government, Her Majesty the Queen approved the founding documents of the Order. The Order of Canada is our country's way of honoring those who have made extraordinary contributions to the nation. Since its creation in Canada's centennial year, almost 8,000 people have been invested into the Order.
Many recreational hunters in Canada have been up in arms as of late, pun fully intended, over the Liberal government's Bill C-21. This legislation was originally intended to ban the sale of handguns in this country, but the Conservatives have accused the Liberals of quietly adding amendments which would now include the banning of several firearms commonly used by Canadian hunters. But the federal government insists hunters aren't being targeted here. but the accusations continue to fly. The Alberta government says the federal government is trying to ban the ownership of firearms altogether. So we took this question to you.
Do you think the government goes too far on the federal firearms ban?
I'm not sure. I have a brother who owns pistols, but he's a registered firearm owner. He practices at range and he keeps his weapons safe. So I think the only thing you're going after is people who have illegal guns, and they're going to have them no matter how many things you put up. So it's kind of like you're just hurting people that are already following the law.
No, probably doesn't go far enough.
Why?
We don't need guns. We just don't need guns. Some people use them wrongfully. Some people do use them properly for target shooting or for legitimate hunting. But I don't really think we need very many guns. So I'm in favor of strict gun control. I suppose target shooters or hunters that are legitimate farmers, they need a rifle, but we don't need assault weapons and terrible things like that. So generally speaking, I think we should crack down.
I think that they need to take a look at how people who legally use them, especially the farmers and things of that nature, I don't think they've covered it off properly. I think they're causing more problems with it.
In what way?
Well, I think that they need to put some regulations in there that take care of people who obtain them legally and also who are using them for non-lethal purposes. I think the issues are greater than just their policy they put in place now.
Yes. The problem isn't with legal guns. In my opinion, it's the illegal gun owners that are the problem, and taking away legal guns does nothing for the problem. You need to be taking it away from the ones that aren't licensed and shouldn't be having the guns, not the ones who've gone through the training to properly learn how to own and handle the gun.
No, I don't think there's any need for anyone other than law enforcement to have firearms in Canada.
And why is that?
Just look at Australia, for example, with their gun legislation, and I think a lot of countries could mirror what they do as well.
Funny you should mention that. I have a firearms license, and I'm a Canadian, and what the current government are doing regarding firearms is, how can I put this politely? It's un-Canadian, all right? It's un-Canadian. I'm a Canadian. I was born here. My parents were born here. My high school had a shooting range, okay? The high schools here on PEI had shooting ranges. So it's un-Canadian what they're doing. It's got no connection to reality. It's all political. And it sucks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, why? Like, when you look at crime, it's not people going out there with their hunting guns. When you look at what's actually happening, it has nothing to do with people having arms. They've had arms all their lives. Farmers and sportsmen, and they're licensed, and they go through rigorous training. I know people who hold handguns who are licensed. They put them in a safe so that they're away. They're always not loaded. They're incredibly responsible people.
Nah, that's a sensitive issue because as Canadians, we grew up in a country as hunters, and we use firearms, and now we definitely handguns. This has to be what a person's not using a handgun to go hunting, right? So I think that yes has to be strictly enforced. That you don't ban a handgun. A person wants to go use it as a hobby and go to a firing range to fire a weapon. But other than that, it shouldn't. There shouldn't be people. But as far as taking away the rights of a person to go hunting, no, that should stay the way it is, I think.
I'd say seeing what's going on down in the States, to me, I think any kind of ban and restriction is necessary. I have real concerns after seeing in recent years what's going on down there. I have no problem with any kind of restriction with firearms.
I think that they have gone a little bit overboard on that because I think it's very important that people have the ability to self-defend themselves, and also they have to have the ability to hunt if that's their primary source of food. But I think that they should be able to implement something, when it comes to criminal checks and things like that, just to make sure that it's not just going into anyone's hands.
Difficult to say. Hunters deserve to have the ability to hunt and the equipment to hunt, meaning guns. But as far as military style weapons, no, don't see that.
100%, totally. I believe the firearms ban, which originally started as purely with handguns and then reached into hunting rifles, is a complete overstretch of the government. And honestly, I believe the government is beginning to overstep their constitutional right as a federal government and are beginning to directly interfere in the provincial levels of governance.
Finally, with the new year upon us, many of us will be striving for a new beginning, new goals, and a new hope for better things to come. So we took to the streets to ask people what positive outcomes they hope to see in this country and around the world in the next 12 months or so. Our question:
what do you want to see happen in 2023?
Peace in Europe.
Europe. Very important to you?
And no fight like Ukraine and those. Yes. Ukraine and between Russia, because it's affect everybody. Like so oil prices and everything.
Yeah, I think same thing. I think it's a very delicate situation there, and it impacts all of us.
My focus is on assisting young entrepreneurs. I think that there's a lot of really smart people out there in Canada, a lot of young entrepreneurs just coming out of university with intellectual property that can help solve a lot of the problems that we're going through right now, not just taking into account the healthcare crises, but a lot of healthcare crises. And I think the barrier to entry to a lot of these grant programs for these not-for-profit organizations and startups and tech companies needs to have a little bit of growth, not just within Canada, in Ottawa, but in Canada as a whole.
I'd like to see more emphasis and investment put on environmental changes, like going more green, reducing emissions. I think that, future generations are going to have it tough if we don't put a thumb on that right now.
Helping the homeless. There's a lot of people on the street particularly. So helping people around, just making it easier for everyone.
I'd like to see the war in the Ukraine over and done with and settled amicably somehow so there can be peace. And I would like to see tax reform in Canada. I would like to see much greater stability in the democratic processes in South America right now. Brazil in specific terms. Yeah.
Asking me, and I'm an Ukrainian, so I hope that the war will end up that year. Yeah, that's for sure. That's my hope. And what else? I hope that we will get rid of this coronavirus crisis. Let's call it crisis. Yeah. So the two major things I believe will happen in this year. So.
I think those are both great things to wish for this year. I think it would it would be nice to continue moving towards a more normal life after all that's been going on.
I have most of my family lives in the West, and I know that there really is a feeling that Canada isn't what it used to be. It's not united. So I'd like to see that a real effort be made on a more unity in Canada.
Oh my God. Good health and no COVID for everyone, first of all.
What would I like to see happen? I would like to see us have a more equitable society in which everybody shares and have a better life.
Government tames inflation, and groceries and everything becomes a little bit more affordable. That's probably my biggest thing.
better environmental plan, like to reduce greenhouse gases and better things for the environment.
I'd like to see increased government action concerning climate change and increased government efforts in terms of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples and First Nations communities.
I'd like to see the housing, something done with it. And there's people on the street that, maybe you can't help, but there is those that you can help, sort of thing. Yeah.
Combination of the politicians actually sort of dedicating themselves through party lines for doing the right thing, but people also understanding that government individually is not going to fix their lives for them, that they too have to play a part in it. So basically like a better role everyone can play within that context.
I'd just like to see people be more friendly to each other and politicians working together to get things done.
Affordable housing. We've actually moved here from Ontario, so that was the main reason that we came down here. So affordable housing everywhere would be awesome. Probably bring a lot more people to Canada. And honestly, just to get us out of like our parents' homes. So I would say affordable housing is the number one thing that should be brought to Canada.
Cross-province fishing licenses. I think it sucks that you have to apply every time with a new province. It's a lot of money.
Obviously, inflation sorted out. I would like to see, though, proportional elections. I think that would end some of the deadlock we have where it's bipartisan too far.
I'd like to see better representation of diversity of opinion, both on a political level and also for public discourse. It's the only way that you can unify people when they're a little bit disaffected, disenfranchised, feel they're not being heard. When people aren't heard, they'll find a way to make themselves heard. And I think that there's only one way to address that polarization, right? And that's through discourse, which means asking people why they think something rather than telling them why they're wrong.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.